I'm Lisa Gregory, the founder of the Event Professionals Network. Thank you so much for tuning in to our very first podcast. But before we dive in, what is the Event Professionals Network? I started the Event Professionals Network back when the COVID pandemic hit in 2019 to provide a collaborative space and to support high-tech event planners as we navigated this ever-changing world of events. We brainstorm ideas together, we share tips, we connect with other planners, we ideate and we check in on the latest industry trends and so much more. I'm excited to share that we have over 200 members now. And if you're a high-tech event manager or you're just in events and want to join, please reach out and I'll send you the link. Quick overview about what we are and what we do. We're always a supportive group. There are no dumb questions. We want to keep things confidential and support each other in the Slack room. There's no selling whatsoever, but we want to be thoughtful and also inclusive. And we want to give back and stay curious. As much as you put in, you'll get back. So we encourage team members to really give back to the community, ask questions, provide any sort of research or anything they've been working on. And it's a great place for folks to post jobs about upcoming job opportunities. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into our very first podcast. I would like to welcome our very special guest, Ricky Salguero. He is the event marketing manager at Mezmo. Ricky and I have known each other for several years now, and he was one of the founding members of the Event Professionals Network. We're going to discuss tips for a successful company rebrand from an events perspective, as well as what it's like to launch a rebrand in the middle of a very busy event season. So let's hear from Ricky. Hi, Ricky. How are you today?
Hi, Lisa. Doing amazing. Having some tea this morning.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me for our very first podcast, YouTube channel. This is for the Event Professionals Network. And today we're going to talk to Ricky about rebranding his company. So Ricky, let's go ahead and dive in.
Of course. And also happy to be the first guest.
Yeah, I know. I was like, who would be the best first guest? We were actually talking about it at KubeCon EU in Spain. And I was like, Ricky would be perfect for this. So thank you. All right. So Ricky, let's tell all of our friends that are listening a little bit about you.
Of course. So education background, I have my bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in management and my master's in business administration. And I did a certificate in advanced global leadership, essentially what I use for work in events, understanding the way people communicate, both verbal and nonverbal body language, and being able to adjust to effectively connect with the other individual. So I can happily say I am using my degrees. On the professional side, I was in the Bay Area for the last 10 years. And since my company went remote with COVID, I was able to empower myself to move back down to Southern California. And I now live over in Hollywood with all my family. Side note, I have 10 nieces and nephews. So there is always a little birthday or something going on. So it's nice to be back.
That's awesome. Yeah, COVID did bring some amazing things to our lives, and being able to work remote and be close to family is one of those magical things for sure. So thanks for telling us about you. Now let's dive into your rebrand journey. Tell us how that all began.
Of course. So we originally were Log DNA, and the name from that came from we had a log analysis product, and we still do to this day. However, that log analysis product was closely tied to the name. So log, literally from the platform log analysis, and the other part DNA. The co-founders were actually trying to name that second part an animal, like log frog or log dog, and they ended up going with DNA because it was one of the domains that was open. So that's how we became.
Been there.
Yeah. So that's how we got Log DNA. And while we established a valuable product, and we're still one of IBM's business partners, and their sole logging provider, we developed essentially backtracked a little and said, what is the core of what we do? the value that we provide. And that's the management of data and seeing how we can aggregate it to one platform, enrich it, control it, and then route it to whatever that end destination is. And as we built more and more capabilities, we see an opportunity to dive into the observability pipeline space. Great, wonderful that we're diving into a second product or the use case of our platform, whatever we want to call that. However, we're still tied to logging only with our log DNA name. So in that became a lengthy process of creating a new name, going through a rebranding, and having a name that better encapsulates what we can grow into as compared to cornering us to only the log analysis space. So after trying quite a few different names and our branding team, who did an amazing job, they actually came up with the name, we came down to Mezmo. And Mezmo originates from mesmerize. Mesmerize saying you're mesmerized by the power and capabilities of your data. And I would like to add my 2 cents in that I changed the S to a Z because I'm like, oh, it looks cooler. And we went with it. So that's
Nice.
how we became Mezmo. And that's how we started diving into our rebrand.
That is awesome. And I love hearing the whole journey. So how long had Log DNA been around before that? So how many years have they been in business?
Yeah, LogDNA started in 2015, 2016, around there. And I joined in 2018 when we were 30 people.
And how many people are at your company right now?
Now we're around 140 and continuing to grow. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's nice. And I think probably the rebrand and all that will encourage new customers to come in and kind of be like, okay, now they offer so much more. But how did you get that confidence to be like, okay, we're, we've been going to shows and talking to customers, and now all of a sudden we're going to do this new thing. Now we have to go in and we have to tell this new customer story. What was that like feeling when you were like, oh my gosh, now everything has to be changed? I know even like your business card, your little signature, your whole website, every show that you've been planning on the event side, everything has to be redone. And I know this because I've been through a rebrand. So tell us what that felt like.
Overwhelming. We'll start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we established the rebrand name, we also developed essentially a project management board and listed every single detail of what needs to be updated, from our logos on our website, our redesigned website, realigned value propositions to our employee emails, all that fun stuff. And I'm still dealing with like email issues now because we have to like re-sign in with our new Mezmo email. So there's still small little things trickling in. So it has been challenging. It continues to be challenging, but it's exciting because the underlying note of this is that we're growing the company and our capabilities. And that is pushed ahead by our Series D funding by Night Dragon. And that's actually what really encouraged that pivot and encouraged us to say, yes, this is the right move. We've designed a product roadmap, shared it with this investment company, and our round of funding actually wasn't intentional. It was after we presented where we're going that they advised a round of funding, and it aligned well. So it empowered us to do the rebrand.
That's amazing. And I love when I went through it, there's like this layer of excitement, right? It's like, okay, we get to pick who we are now, like as a company. So what was that excitement like for your team? It's like, did you get new swag? Did you get like, you get to go in and make your staple as this is happening?
Oh, definitely. It's nice because we really have our hands in that bucket, making and forming this brand. Our logo was delayed for a while, so we did rebrand this year. Our official launch was in May, and our employees, we did an internal launch and did like a temporary logo. The employees were really excited to see what are the branding colors, what is everything going to look like. But our rebranding agency hasn't provided all the information, so we were kind of just like saying it's about to come, it's about to come. So we gave them like a placeholder gift, and then our fully rebranded, actualized logo will be provided to them at our all company offsite.
Nice. So as far as the challenges, because you've mentioned a few challenges, was there like one challenge that you were like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that, or a few challenges that you were like, wow, okay, there's a whole nother, because when we were creating our project board, we got the big stuff, right? It was like, okay, we need a new logo, we need new colors, all that stuff. But then there was that nitty gritty, tiny little stuff. What was the most challenging for you?
For me, I'm going to circle it back to events, was last minute events that we added into. So I have been trying to get into RSA since September, October of last year. In late March, early April, they said, hey, our event's coming up in like 2 months. Would you still like to join? We have space. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. We've been trying to align for this. Okay, let's go ahead and plan for it. But that was right at that time of our rebrand.
Yeah.
So a lot of issues came up with me of I'm missing so many deadlines because the submissions that they're asking for don't exist. I don't have a logo to submit. I don't know what my colors are. I don't have one pagers to provide for our online site. I don't have like a physical booth I can send. So that was not something I expected because RSA in San Francisco, Splunk's user conference in Las Vegas, and Snowflake's user conference in Las Vegas were all last minute ads on top of the rebrand, same timeline.
Yep.
So a lot of worry, a lot of hesitation, and a lot of pushing myself to say, hey, that I am not stressed. I'm feeling stressed. And this is going to pass just like a cloud. I'll be fine.
And it did, right? Like
Yeah,
it all works out. Yeah, I remember the same thing. It's like, how many times can Red Hat Summit email me and say, I need this, I need this, I need this. You're missing the deadline. You won't have a booth. And I'm just sitting there like, okay. And going to my design team, like, do we print a sticker? Like, do we just print a black booth and then bring a sticker? Do we just have it all black and then have a pop-up? Like, what kind of favors do we need to throw up in the air to be like, how do we make this work? So that's awesome. What kind of things did you guys do with your booths and stuff? Because I know you had your new logo. Did you do creative things like that, or were the sponsoring companies that you were going to those events, were they understanding? How'd that work?
So it was challenging at first, and I tried to give the perspective of like, we're going through a rebrand, this doesn't exist yet. And then through that process, I learned myself that I know I keep myself to a very high standard, one that is like
Ricky, weird.
Crazy, right?
Are you type A? I don't know.
You would never guess, right? But in keeping myself to such a high standard and going through that process of like, I can't do this because it doesn't exist. I learned that, hey, these are also people, they're going to be understanding. This deadline is probably a suggestion. They probably have a buffer. Let's just work with it. And you know what? Let's just be fully transparent from the start. Just tell them what my issue is. I'm sorry, this is not happening. Also, we started entering summer and I'm like, cool. Now I'm starting to manage also some PTOs requests. Like, a person is not in. It just doesn't exist. I can't do anything. So just reminding myself that these are all just suggestions. Let's communicate and over communicate, explain our side, and just hope for the best. And for our booths that we did, thank goodness they were all turnkey booths for those events. So we had an essence of what our branding and our logo was going to be. So we're like, okay, let's just go ahead and go with this. This will be our theme across these 3 events because they were back to back.
Yep.
And it'll be cohesive for now. We understand that the brand's going to continue to develop in the future and there's going to be some edits we'll make. But for now, this is just who we are. Great. Perfect. I'm like, works for me. Let's keep going.
Having it be good enough and not perfect. I think a lot of folks in just marketing in general want things to be perfect. And like, I think that stops a lot of marketers from kind of moving forward and creating these cool experiences because we grow, marketing shifting, even monthly it shifts like, well, that project or thing didn't work and now we have to try something else. So that's cool that you guys just kind of went for it. Yeah. What were some things that really brought the team together? So it takes a full company effort when you rebrand. It can't just be one human kind of sitting here, kind of directing people. Everybody has to be involved. So what were some kind of magical moments as people got involved in the rebrand?
I think the best highlight for me is our director of marketing communications and our director of creative design. They explained out to the entire company how we got to this name and gave the whole story and really just brought them in to say, hey, this is our process. You're part of it, to understand what was that, how did we get to that end goal? And then aligning that with a, hey, this is a temporary gift from us with our new name on there. Our logo will change and there's going to be some font differences over time, but this is a gift we want to share with you, and we want to give you that story so we could have your buy-in as well. So I think that was specifically like a pivotal moment to bring everyone on board. And then everybody started getting excited and they're like, oh, this is so cool. Like, what are our colors going to be? I think it would be neat if it was this. Oh, if we went with this element. And I'm just like, yeah, like start generating that idea, that excitement.
Yeah, the power of internal communications is so important. And I think when planners are doing planning, we always think external, like how are we going to tell our message external? But super strong marketers such as yourself and your team, and those folks that you mentioned, internal communications is just as important, because you have to pull everybody along. And I love that they gave a gift, because it was like, we're not just doing this thing in marketing, like it's a full company experience. So that's super powerful. And I'm glad they did that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, it was a nice gift. So I'm just like, this is also great to receive.
Yeah. Okay. So the launch was in May, and you were in Spain running an event when it launched. And I'm sure a lot of people, like you were saying, a lot of people haven't been taking vacations, and finally people are starting to take vacations. What was it like to have that launch happening? Because I know it impacts events significantly while you were on site running another event.
So in my mind, I try to push myself to be present and say, hey, I'm still Log DNA. This week, I'm Log DNA. We're presenting as Log DNA, communicating as Log DNA. On Sunday, I'm Mezmo, but that's on Sunday, and that's not here yet.
Yeah.
And, some of our marketers that joined us for that event, they went ahead and left the conference a little early so they could go home, reset, and get ready for the launch, because that Sunday, my heart goes out to them. I know all day, all night, and into the next day, there was errors, bug fixes, website updates, communications, press releases, and I'm glad that they took that space to handle that.
Yeah.
Because I know I could not. Especially coming right off of an international conference and then coming back to the US to prepare for the next conference as a new branding, new name as Mezmo.
Yeah.
So definitely dividing and conquering and staying present with my task as compared to saying like, oh, well, then there's this and that and that and this, and then we snowball.
Yeah. Well, and this year, especially, all years in events that tend to be busy pre-COVID, but this year with COVID kind of simmering down a little bit, folks feeling like they can go out a little bit more. This May and June were just wildly packed with events. I mean, we had 17 events in June alone.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. And I've just never seen anything like it. So you also needed time to shift with your jet lag, and then prep for the next event, and then prep for the next event, and then also be a good leader and make sure that everything was done and your team was having a good time. Did you guys, with your rebrand, did you tease it a little bit like beforehand and kind of like let people know like some news is coming, or was it just all on that one day that the news broke?
The slight teaser that we gave was like in person at KubeCon EU. So sharing it with some of the attendees that were there, it's something exciting is coming ahead. There's going to be a refreshed brand. We always say like a refresh. There's going to be like new elements. Something new is coming. We never said like, oh, we're going to have a new name. We never did that. And then that Sunday night into Monday morning.
Yep. So
what was
what was the response of the community when you rebranded?
So as I went into the following conferences, it was really exciting to see some individuals come up to us and say, like, weren't you Log DNA before? Oh, I heard about your rebranding. And to me, that made my heart sing. I'm just like, our marketing is working. They're understanding what we communicate to them. They're on our emailing list. They're following us on Twitter. So it's super exciting to have those conversations on site. And then the slightly not so positive part, there were some questions, concerns raised on our comment section in Twitter. I mean, what was expected of Twitter. And it was people who didn't understand the process. And I remember there's one comment saying, oh, why did they switch over? Log DNA was such a great product for their, such a great name for their product. I'm like, and that's exactly why we had to switch. It
Yeah,
was paid
you
for that
offered
one
more.
offering.
Yep.
If we want to grow, we have to grow past that one offering, that one title, that name.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and it's awesome that your leaders and your team knew that. But I think the storytelling and marketing is so important. So I'm sure eventually that person will be like, oh, this makes sense. They want to offer
Oh,
more. And it's still, you're still going to have the Log DNA product. So how did you do your product naming with that? So you have more offerings. How did you guys determine? I know product naming is so challenging. What did you guys do there?
so that's developing.
Okay.
I can't give a direct answer because there are different ways and views and perspective that we have on it. Are we a two product offering company? Do we have one platform with two use cases? Is it an offering with a main use case and a side use case now for log analysis? So that's definitely in the process to understand what is the best motion for us.
Yep.
So we'll get back to you.
Okay, sounds good. And you could have a third product come out because in technology
Exactly.
things change so quickly and you want to you want to be able to pivot quickly. So and now as you continue to go through, so when do you think this whole like rebrand process, when do you think it'll be done? And actually, when did you start it? I'm trying to look at like how long that cycle took. So our friends listening can be like, okay, well, if we're ever going to do a rebrand and we kind of get in this same situation, how long should we expect that this will take?
Yeah, so October to about like December was our brand identity, our naming and understanding where we're going to go in directions of like design elements.
In
And then
2001, right? Yeah.
correct, and
Yep.
end of
Okay.
year of 2001. And then 2022, we had a pivot in marketing because our VP of marketing was leaving. It was a slight moment, and I kid you not, this was like 2 days of we're going to stop the rebrand. We're not going to launch it because we're going to wait for our marketing leader. And then after talking to the board of directors, they empowered us to continue moving forward as
Awesome.
we find that next VP of marketing, that CMO, because they were so proud and stood behind the work that we did. And then that kicked back up, and honestly, 2 days of hesitation, worrying, and we're like, oh, okay, we're fine again.
Yeah, I feel like it wouldn't be life if we didn't sit back and be
Yeah.
like, ah. And at a startup, there is turnover. And that is something that people have to pause and be like, oh, is this new leader going to buy in? What do we do? So
Mhm.
it's awesome that the board was like, nope, we're committed. We're good to go because you guys did do all of that work. And it would be sad to just be like, nope, we're done. So it's awesome that they supported you. And then now that it's May 2022, when do you think you'll actually like feel? Because I remember at a previous company I worked at, like I finally felt like, okay, we're done. Like our old brand is pretty much gone. We are this new brand. When do you think that will happen for you guys?
I would say like around September timeframe, because there's those small elements like, oh, is this piece of content still valuable and used in marketing campaigns? Oh, make sure that's rebranded. Or
Yep.
the largest
Yeah.
one, okay, switching over our website app from LogDNA to Mezmo and ensuring all customers switch over with it. Larger items like that are still in the works.
Which is actually perfect timing because September, October, well, November, and sometimes now December in
Yeah.
our industry never stops. So with COVID, there's been a lot of change and I feel like in our industry, we've had to learn whole new jobs. Essentially, we did like virtual events, and now we're doing hybrid events, and now trade shows are coming back, but trade shows look a little bit different. How do you keep everything balanced and still super excited about what you're doing every day?
Community.
Yeah.
And this is a shout out to you, Lisa. Honestly, just having other individuals that I could share like my issues, my frustrations, my wins, my accomplishments with,
Yeah.
and get their perspective because I'm the only events marketer at my company.
Yep.
So at times when I talk to other people, it's great to have a conversation with them, but they may not have the context. I get a lot of, oh, that worked out great. Oh, this looks amazing. Like, oh, keep doing what you're doing. But I'd rather you come back with a comment saying it could have improved this way. And if you're right, I'm like, great, I'm growing as an individual, growing my event strategy. And if you're wrong, it provides me an opportunity to say, this is why I don't think this aligns with my strategy, but let me teach you why. And in teaching them, I'm learning as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I do want to reiterate that the Event Professionals Network is for any event professional. You don't have to be in tech. You could be anywhere in the entire world. There's over 200 of us in the Slack channel right now, and all we do is help each other. So I mean, seriously, Ricky, you could reach out, call me anytime, but I love that we can do that with so many people. So tell us some things that you would bring to the Event Professionals Network that you might not bring to somebody else on your team as like a question, so that people can understand like the value of what being a part of the community is.
Of course. The first one, when we first started at the start of COVID, is a support group for individuals in our role who were losing their jobs.
Yeah.
Can I find another role that I can fill? Does someone have a job opening? Am I able to find a referral? Honestly, am I able just to have support during this time of uncertainty and insecurity?
Yeah.
That has been extremely helpful. But on top of that, understanding, hey, are you seeing these trends with your virtual events? Are you seeing a uptick or downtick in registrations because of COVID? Does anyone have any venue recommendations for this area? I'm thinking of some virtual events for my team. What is something fun that you did? And my favorite, I've used this vendor. Do you have feedback?
Yeah.
I'm looking for someone
Yeah,
as
we
a
have a few
side.
that people are like, yeah, use them, and then a few like,
Yeah.
no comment.
Oh, yeah. I actually just provided feedback like a week ago to somebody in the network, and I said, "Oh, I used them. They solved my use case for this specific time frame, but I grew past them, and this is exactly why I need to find someone else."
Yes.
So
Yeah, it is
network.
it's so helpful. And people can put job postings in there. If you're looking for a job, you can put stuff in there. We also do retrospectives on different events. We do surveys. I think we did one. It was like a confidential salary survey. So I created it, but obviously no one put their names in. We were able to provide feedback on everybody's input, so people can be like, oh, okay, well, actually, I don't think I'm making as much as I should. And that was super empowering, because then they could go back to their manager and say, I know I'm the only events person, which is common in a lot of companies. Maybe they have maybe a coordinator or somebody, or a project manager in marketing that helps them. But a lot of the time, event planners, you're the only one.
Yeah.
And a lot of times your manager, like I know there's turnover in tech, like they don't actually know exactly what you do. And so having that power of just being able to say, let me go into the Event Professionals Network. I can type in like, what virtual tools are you using? What entertainment is working really well right now? And you just get people responding right away. There's a huge amount of power. And so thank you so much for being a part of our community. Yeah, it's so fun. Okay, so I want to just close this with some fun stuff. So we'll kind of shift gears a little bit. What are 3 words that inspire you or kind of represent Ricky?
The first one, I kind of get annoyed at this one. Positivity. Just because I always look at things like in a positive light. I'm just like, oh well, this event is completely like going down and this is not ordered or this is not delivered. I'm just like, okay, that's an opportunity to go ahead and just pivot.
Yeah.
oh, I'm being challenged and I'm going to grow from this. Positivity always just resonates with me 100%. I took one of the personality tests and that was like my top category. And I'm like,
Yeah, you make the best out of things because what,
oh,
there's only so much you can do.
yeah. Second, I would say organize. My therapist asked me, because I'm a little OCD, and she asked me, Ricky, is this something you want to talk about? And I'm like, no. I'm like genuinely fascinated by like organizational structures. And oh, what was the categories that you use when fixing up your closet? Oh, are you leveraging different zones for different areas? Did that change after a few months? Are you prioritizing things in a different way now? Like I genuinely get excited about organization. And last, I will say one thing that like I constantly challenge myself to be is present.
Yeah.
In our role, this just happened to me 2 days ago. I have like 3 events that I'm planning, and there's different elements coming in at different times, different emails and Slack messages coming in, and it's gives me brain fog. And I get overwhelmed, and I actually have to take a step away. And I'm just like, oh, I'm having a little bit of an anxiety attack. I took a moment. I'm just like, I'm just feeling anxious. I am not anxious. I need to stay present. Let's just focus on one thing at a time and stay present with that.
Yeah. I
So
love that.
presence.
I think one thing I think of when I think of Ricky too is you love education. So at the beginning you were talking about like, your degrees and your masters and stuff like that. I can see that you are a continual learner and the power of being a continual learner and that excitement of like just waking up in the morning, right? Like
Yeah.
you love to learn. So if something goes wrong, you're like, well, I won't do that again. let's learn and grow. But I love that. Like I kind of feel that same way. So I think that's why we resonate and like connect so much because I look at like every day as going to grad school. Like I just love to learn. I love to meet new people and I thrive from that. And I think you do too. So that's awesome. All right. So this is a topic that I know is dear to my heart. And because in our industry, we're literally thrown around the world, literally different time zones constantly. And even if you aren't working in a different time, or if you're not on another time zone, or you're not in another country, you're working globally all the time on multiple different time zones just within your organization now because we work around the clock. So how do you keep your zen and your work-life balance?
I would say first, I remind myself that it's never going to be a perfect level. Sometimes I'm going to be overly obsessed with work. Sometimes I'm overly obsessed with life, or
Yeah.
maybe just overly obsessed with like alone time. And there's going to be definitely like an ebb and flow throughout the year. And that's okay. And I just remind myself that this is just temporary. We're going to go through another cycle. It's going to be great again. If I'm like having issues now, no worries, like we'll be fine. And also reminding myself, like, did you drink water? Did you
Yeah.
take a break? Did you
Yeah.
get lunch? Um, Make sure that, yes, I have Slack on my phone, but it's not allowed to send push notifications. It's on there if like, oh, I need to follow up on this. Let me see if that message came in yet. Not I'm available whenever you need me. So
Yeah.
very, very different. The one thing I do regarding email, email does come up on my phone as a notification, but it's not allowed to pop up. I have to like scroll up and then it shows it. But I only do that so I could delete the junk email and get to the important stuff later.
Awesome. So you were talking about a little bit like daily habits, drinking water. I know you're big on working now. I think
My
you
cup is the size of my head, by the way. Yeah.
you
You
can see mine
too?
too. Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
What are some daily habits? Because I know I have a bunch too, but I've talked to you about them. Like I think you have some podcasts and stuff. Like what are some daily habits that people could maybe take away?
Yeah, so one habit I think is the most beneficial for me is I work out in the morning before work. Let me just say this, it wasn't easy to do that. It wasn't easy to wake up at 5 a.m. to get to the gym at 6. But then now I've developed into this routine where I'm like, oh no, I need to go do something for me and invest in me before I outpour so much to everyone else. And even if I'm just there for like 30 minutes, I'm just like, well, I did something and I got out of the house. So
Yeah.
that's like a double win for me.
Yeah, especially when we're working at home now. It's like, yeah. And how many steps did I get? That's my biggest one. Like, oh my gosh, I haven't moved today.
Exactly.
I better get out of the house. So that's good that you wake up and you get that, and I know mentally, like that mental well-being when you work out regularly, you're drinking water, and then you have this community always that is here for you, is powerful. So, well, thank you so much, Ricky. This was awesome. I know it's Friday. I'll let you get back into your day. Any closing final words for our friends that might be, kind of just new in the industry, or just want to say any final closing words?
Allow yourself to be vulnerable with other individuals. Everyone here is here to support you. Though we don't work at the same company, we're on the same team. And
Yep.
that's why we have our platform, our workspace for everyone in the event marketing space.
Amazing. That is exactly why. All right. Well, thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Of course. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.